Good afternoon, a very happy Friday to you, and thanks for joining us as we take a look back at some of the bigger stories and events from the week gone by. On today's show, we'll be looking at a very serious report published in yesterday's Evening Times, Crufts, Clarkson and much more. I'm Ryan Boonaghy, and this is the week that was. Joining me today to give their take on the week's happenings are Peter Campbell and Andrew Watson. Gents, good afternoon to both of you. Although before we get to that, a first look at today's front pages. The Scotsman leads with the prospect of the Scottish Green Party taking legal action against the STV. That's after the broadcaster excluded them from a pre-election debate. A splash in the Times suggests leading Liberty groups have declared that a terrorist attack in Britain is a price worth paying to protect civil liberties. Glasgow has been hit by a wave of fake US dollar bills, that's according to the Evening Times. And the Daily Record leads with an interview with the son of boxing champion Bobby Keddy, blaming the NHS for his father's death. Now, gents, going back to the beginning of the week, Hillsborough, what's happened this week, Andrew?
Well, basically, David Dickenfield has admitted he made some massive mistakes in the way that he led the police operation, obviously, at the game, and he's admitted that he made a quote-unquote blunder of the first magnitude in failing to close the tunnel that led onto the Leppings Lane terrace, which housed some Liverpool supporters during the game.
And it seems, Peter, that each and every development with Hillsborough, there always seems to be a case of, I know they said it's not a cover-up, although the truth was never fully told at the time.
Yeah, I think some mistakes within the police, probably police covering their backs of other police officers during the time of the disaster, has led to this being ongoing for 2 decades, going on 25 years now, 26 years. And I think it's a shame that it's been carried on for so long, because these people just want, the families of the victims just want justice, really. Hence the whole justice for the 96. But I don't believe, I think it really should be put to bed very soon. It's a shame to just keep bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up. And these people need peace. These 96 people need to just...
Do you think
peace.
they ever will get full closure?
Personally, no, because how many inquiries, how many investigations into it have we seen since it happened? It was closed, the investigation was closed in the mid-90s, and then it was opened again, and then that investigation was closed, and then it was opened again a few years ago. I think until it is decided once and for all that here's what happens and here's why it happened, then there won't be, it's impossible for it to be closure, because they keep, like Pete said, they keep blaming someone else, they keep pulling someone else into the spotlight. And it's important to say that David Dickenfield had only been appointed into his role 2 weeks before the game, and for him to go and have to deal with this massive event only 2 weeks into the job, I'm not sure what the logistics behind it or whether it was a good idea at the time, but in hindsight it was obviously a pretty big mistake. But it's important to say that at the time I firmly think that everything that the police done that day, they believed at the time to be the right thing to do. Obviously in hindsight,
it was a different age, it was a different time really, and Hillsborough disaster really brought into, I mean, after that there was a real clampdown on the security at football games, and numbers, attendances, terrace stands are almost extinct now. I think the last terrace game I went to was a Scottish League 2 match, and but I think it's important that this is now closed fully now. People are still continuing to blame other people, blame the police force.
Yeah,
it needs to just be put to bed, really.
It rumbles on.
I think that's what we'll...
Now, it seems he's never far away from controversy. I am, of course, speaking about Jeremy Clarkson. Where do you stand, Andrew, on Clarkson? Because we've heard so often that he's very, very lucrative for the BBC.
Yes.
Is the player bigger than the club?
Well, he's worth £50 million a year to the BBC, because obviously Top Gear has been sold to so many countries around the world. It's sold on to other broadcasters. DVD rights, they do a live arena tour, which brings in so many punters, as it were, to arenas across the UK. But I think if I was to go to my work tonight and punch someone, I wouldn't have a job to go back to tomorrow. Now, obviously I don't bring £50 million a year into my employers, but whether that should make a difference or not, I'm not sure. I think he's obviously courted controversy before, and he always seemed to have been one strike away. But I think this time, because it has had such an effect on a direct effect on a colleague, I think it's very difficult to see a way back for him.
Pete, you're a massive fan of Top Gear, a massive fan of Clarkson himself.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on it?
Do you know, he's been waiting for this for a long time. This has been a long time in the coming. Him getting suspended from live TV. He's been asking for it, and I think he deserves to be suspended in that respect. We don't know the full details, and I don't think we ever will know the full details, to be honest. But the reason why it's making such big news, it wouldn't if it was somebody else in the public sphere. I know a couple of years ago, Christian Bale lashed out at a cinematographer on one of his films that he was doing. I don't know what film it was, but he lashed out at one of the cinematographers for no reason whatsoever, and people didn't make such a big deal of it. The reason this has been made such a big deal of is because Jeremy Clarkson is in the public eye all the time, and the BBC is a public service broadcaster. We as the taxpayer pay for the BBC. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm a student, so I don't. But the taxpayer pays for the BBC, so the BBC have to be held accountable for that. I think if it happened on any other station, if Top Gear was broadcast on ITV or Channel 4, I don't think it'd have that much impact.
If Clarkson is going to keep becoming involved in these skirmishes, it begs the question: is it time for a new presenter of Top Gear? Could Top Gear survive with a new face at the helm?
It would become a much different programme to the one we know. I think because Jeremy Clarkson is, I believe, to be a very good journalist. He's an excellent writer. Aside from his on-screen, I genuinely think that his on-screen Top Gear host persona is a slightly exaggerated version of the real thing. Obviously, he does court controversy a lot. He genuinely is a big personality. He's a larger than life person. But I still think that his on-screen persona is slightly exaggerated, because off the screen he's got columns in national newspapers. He releases books, DVDs, the lot, which sell well and are generally well received.
His own daughter's got a column in the Sun.
Yeah,
he's always in the public eye. That's why he's been held accountable this time. Yeah. But what will happen, in my opinion, is it'll be blown over again. He'll get a fine, a slap on the wrist, and then it'll be and on with Top Gear. On it goes. I think this incident, although we'll never know what happened. I read in the news today that apparently
he had a steak.
It was a steak dinner. Yeah. Apparently he initiated the BBC investigation into himself.
Yeah, reported himself.
He reported himself in. I don't know what prompted him to do that. It's a bit of a strange thing for Clarkson to do.
He's got a non-existent relationship with Danny Cohen, who is the BBC's one of the main men in the BBC, and his relationship with him is non-existent. And allegedly, he wanted Danny Cohen to find out from Clarkson himself before getting some fabricated story of it, some exaggerated account of the events. But having said all this, if Jeremy Clarkson does resign or get sacked from the BBC, you know for sure that his mobile phone's going to be ringing for the rest of the day. ITV, Sky, the lot offering him the big money to come over to them, because he is a money-making machine.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to bring things a bit closer to home. Yesterday's Evening Times had published a very, very distressing report which suggested that children as young as 7 are self-harming. Andrew, what did you make of that when you saw the double-page spread yesterday?
It's obviously very concerning. The stats that are brought up by the investigation are extremely damning, but I think the root cause is a lack of awareness. I personally had only heard of one of the charities mentioned in the report. Now, that being Childline. Obviously, charities do exist specifically for self-harming and to help those who are affected by it. But I couldn't, before I read the report, I couldn't name any of them. So I know there is a reluctance, and I agree with that reluctance to bring it into the public eye, but at the same time, people who are afflicted by it have to know that there is somewhere to go for help. And at the moment it seems like there isn't.
So a case of greater publicity, Pete?
Yeah,
definitely,
100%. There's not enough done in schools, I don't think. I think there's more being done in the past 10 years than there has been ever, to do with mental health and self-harm and general well-being of young people. There is more being done, but there should be even more happening. I heard frightening, it was something like 140% rise. We were discussing this before the show. 140% rise in North Ayrshire of in NHS clinics of people coming in self-harming under the age of 18, I think it was. That's ridiculous. In the past 2 years, 100%, 140% rise. Something more needs to be done, really.
And it wasn't that long ago, you guys were at school. Can you ever recall sort of specialist guidance on self-harm or signs to look out for?
No.
Was it ever there?
No, definitely
Honestly,
not. It definitely seemed to be something that was kind of swept under the carpet. There seemed to be a bit of a stigma around it that existed when I was at school, and I still think exists to this day, that aside from a newspaper investigation from the Evening Times, I would never have heard of it. And I don't think, I think that applies to the majority as well, that if out with an Evening Times investigation, it's when was the last time you seen a story about it in the press? So it's all about publicity. I know it's a tender subject, we don't want to go into it too much detail, but it is all about publicity. People who are affected have to know that there is somewhere to go.
Yeah, I know. There's good cases that have came out of people really publicising self-harming. I know there was the most famous case I can think of. This is a wee bit out of the way, but the most famous case I can think of was a young girl who was a massive Harry Potter fan when one of the Harry Potter books got released, and she really wanted to go to the book signing by J.K. Rowling, and but she was in hospital. She'd been self-harming, and she was in hospital, and she managed to get day release, get out, go to the book signing, and J.K. Rowling noticed that she'd been self-harming and said, if you can stop that, if you can clear yourself up, I'll give you a part in one of my films. And she got one of the main parts in the Harry Potter films. She was Luna Lovegood in one of the Harry Potter films. This kind of thing, it really needs to be drawn attention to. The people at the top of the public sphere, in the public eye, need to be drawn attention to stuff that's happening to the kids who look up to them.
Okay. Now, going political, we've had a debate about a debate about a debate, it seems, when it comes to the TV debates. And we had the poster at the beginning of the week depicting Ed Miliband in Alex Salmond's pocket. Where do you guys stand on David Cameron sort of shying away? Is he running scared, or is he being quite cunning and tactful about it? Andrew?
I think it's a difficult one to answer, that one. To address the poster first is yet another example to me of politicians focusing on the negatives of another party rather than the positives of their own party. So if I would like politicians to say, this is why you should vote for me, not this is why you shouldn't vote for someone else. And David Cameron shying away from the debates, I think, it's hard to tell. I believe that he should be debating on TV, but at the same time,
he never did for the independence referendum.
No,
bringing the conversation up to Scotland here, he never debated for during the independence referendum and the lead up to the referendum, and he kind of left it to Darling and Salmond first of all, and then when it came to, at STV we did there was a 3-on-3 debate between Nicola Sturgeon, Patrick Harvey, and Elaine C. Smith for the Yes campaign, and for the No campaign for the Better Together, Douglas Alexander, Kezia Dugdale, and Ruth Davidson. and he never got involved in that. It's predictable from Ed Miliband though to draw attention away from his party, which is, I think we all agree here, the Labour Party's not in a great way just now. So he's really drawn attention away from that. Putting it on to David Cameron, it's a good tactic, but it's kind of predictable to see through.
So just very quickly, one last point on that, gents. David Cameron, fox or chicken?
Chicken.
Chicken. Don't sit in the fence, Pete.
I think he's been smart about this. He was smart about it in the Scottish referendum, and but he'll have to get involved sooner or later. I think he's been a fox just now, but the sooner he waits, he's turning into a big chicken. So
if you're looking for things to do in Glasgow this weekend, well, you won't be disappointed. As well as the International Comedy Festival, there's also the Cup Final, which in the last fixture last week proved to be quite a tasty fixture. Gents, any predictions?
I can't see anything other than a Celtic victory, sadly.
I'd love to say Dundee United could do the same as last week, but somebody's got to win it this time, and I think it's going to be Celtic. Sorry to be boring and all that.
And just one very quick point, the front page of today's Scottish Sun, Scott Brown slumped on the floor, trying to eat a kebab. Will he start on Sunday?
Yes, of course he will. He's far too big a player. Surely, this is another example. This is
a Clarkson type situation almost.
Although he's a footballer, but he's still a human being. Surely he's still allowed to go and enjoy himself, and it looked like he did, to be fair.
Really did. I think he will be playing on Sunday. I've got no doubt about that. Bit silly being photographed with a kebab in hand, just out of a strip club. I'm told. Bit of a silly place to be photographed midweek, but
footballers.
He's a character anyway, and he provides the headlines, and hopefully he'll provide the headlines on Sunday for Celtic.
Boys will be boys, eh? Well, that's just about all we have time for today. From myself, Peter and Andrew, thank you for joining us, and do join us again next week on The Week That Was. Bye for now.